Hello everybody and welcome to the WWE Week that was, the first edition of the WWE Week that was, with me, Liam from CouchCastUK. Basically what we're going to be doing in this segment is we're going to be wrapping up the whole week's worth of WWE, what went down, what was good, what was bad, what could have been done better, which was absolutely atrocious, what was going on this week. Now, only one place to start, with WWE Raw on Monday night, and Kevin frickin' Owens is your new WWE Universal Champion. Holy crap, what a moment. The crowd went absolutely ballistic. The chanting of "You deserve it," which was unreal considering that, Kevin Owens, for all intents and purposes, is the best heel that company has. Is that the end of his heel character? We'll go into that. Triple H's involvement hasn't been seen on WWE Raw since WrestleMania. What's the crack with that? Then we're going to throw it over to SmackDown, where we debate the fallout of The Miz and Daniel Bryan's segment last week on Talking Smack, the furthering of feuds including AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose, and all things Heath Slater. Now, starting off with Raw. Now, what do you say about the finish of that show? Absolutely fantastic. It's been a long time in coming, in my opinion. Mr. Kevin Owens is our new WWE Universal Champion. Already the crowd are behind him. He is the best worker, probably at least one of the best 5 on the stick in the company, and it is high time the man, after 14, 15 years in the Indies, gets his due. Now, the finish to that match wasn't anything that I expected, and I don't think anybody else expected. The COO of WWE, Triple H, he returns after April, and we're now in September. That's a 5-month absence for Mr. Levesque, and what an influence he had on the match. Who, as I said, who expected Triple H's involvement, even up until the last minute when he came out and pedigreed. Well, we expected him to go after Reigns. Reigns has history with Triple H. Seth Rollins, they obviously have history, but that turn was just flawless. And apparently a lot of it was done off the cuff. It's been a rumour going around the internet all week that Kevin Owens did not know that he was going to win the championship until the moment that Triple H pedigreed Seth Rollins. Now, if that's true, and I pray to God it is true, what a way to find out you have been picked to be the face of WWE Raw, the face that runs the place, but not on SmackDown, on Raw this time. You could see how much it meant to Kevin just in his reaction. That kind of makes me believe that the rumor is true, and as I said, I pray to God it is, because what a fantastic way for one of the most deserving guys on the roster in the company. You can include SmackDown, you can include NXT, the CWC, which we'll also cover later on. Just fantastic ending. Moving on to Triple H's involvement, I don't know. I've spoken to a few of the Couchcast guys about this week, and it just makes for unpredictable, gripping television, which, to be fair, we don't get enough of these days on at least on Raw and SmackDown. You occasionally get a bit on the big shows, but this was a moment pretty much out of the Attitude Era, just completely unexpected, off the cuff, and it's the best kind of booking you can do, because that sort of unpredictability can only garner more viewers next week. The internet blew up when Kevin won the belt, and I guarantee that Raw will see the benefits of that next week in terms of viewership. You're looking at a much higher viewership, and just credit to everybody in that fatal 4-way match for the Universal title as well. Big Cass, he may have been eliminated first, but boy did he look strong in that match, and particularly in the opening segment, which I'll touch upon in a second. Seth Rollins, you thought he was going to win, because that's his character, the cocky heel who's gonna see out, gonna send the crowd home booing. Didn't happen. Roman Reigns has gone back to his quiet assassin sort of deal. That is where he needs to be character-wise. It's all well and good having him talk again, like we've had the past few weeks, and yeah, some of the stuff he did with Rusev was fairly entertaining, but no one's buying it for a second. It's not working, and yeah, the four guys in the Fatal 4-Way opened the show this week, and my, what a perfectly executed promo. All guys were on point. Corey Graves just asking the right questions. The reactions were brilliant. Kevin Owens mocking Corey Graves. Roman Reigns saying absolutely nothing until it gets physical. Cass with his cockiness, but not so. The best thing about that bit for Cass was it gave him time to shine on the mic. We all know Enzo can work a stick, but it was time to let Colin Cassidy fly on this one and poke him fun at the Seth Rollins incident from, was it last year or maybe the year before, on Snapchat, where he exposed his junk. That was comedy brilliance, and I think that it's genuinely credit to Seth that he was able to laugh that off live television, so he didn't really have any other choice. But yeah, that was a brilliant segment. As for Cass, as I said, I was very, very impressed with him this week, and you can definitely see there's absolute potential for a big singles push somewhere down the line. What does that do to Enzo? Does he become Cass's manager? Do either Enzo or Cass eventually go heel? The possibilities are there. I definitely can see that happening in the future. A bit more on Raw this week. We're going to throw it back to just recently, this whole Gallows and Anderson thing. It pains me to say this, but it's not working. I don't think creative really know what it is they want Anderson and Gallows to be. Do they want them to be these the all-conquering, badass, smash-mouth heels that they kind of pervade when they took out the Dudleys last week? Or do they want them to be like this obnoxious comedy act that we've seen with the ring postitis and the old fart thing that we got this week, the retirement home thing? You know, somewhere behind the scenes in gorilla position, Vince is having a really good giggle at all this. Like, how do I best describe it? Immature is not the right word, but maybe it is. We all know Vince likes toilet humour, and that's fine. There's a place for that, but I'm not with these two. You spent a good month building them up to be, as I said, these all-conquering heels who ruled the Japanese tag division for 2 or 3 years. And as an NJPW fan, that's all you needed them to be. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they've kind of been allowed to develop a character, but it just seems scripted and forced, which obviously a lot of WWE television is. For your main guys, you just want them to go out there and be this amplified version of themselves that we all know they can be. And another terrible choice was having them team with Dana Brooke this week. She's just, no, she's bad, isn't she? She's awful. I appreciate they're trying to get her over, and teaming her with Charlotte was maybe the right way to go about it, but it's just not working. Charlotte, quite realistically, should have been Gallows and Anderson's tag partner this week. I appreciate the trying to get Charlotte over by keeping Bayley at arm's length. It is the heel way to go, but in the end, you all know how that match was going to finish, the 6-person tag match, and once again, it involves Gallows and Anderson losing. Now, that they've lost so much since they debuted, and once again, this was just another complete halt to their momentum. These guys are supposed to be the number one contenders to the tag team championships, and they can't win a match. Who's buying that? Who's booking this? It really isn't working, and it's a common problem I find across a lot of WWE product, is that they expect fans to still be behind guys who can't pick up a win. And we'll talk about that when I get to SmackDown in a little bit. Moving on to other segments from Raw this week, the Cesaro and Sheamus best of 7 rolled on, and you could have heard a flea fart during that match. It was nobody in the crowd cares about it, and I'm pretty damn sure nobody at home cares about it either. We're only 2 matches in. The crowd do not care. Sheamus is now 2-0 up, which credit to WWE. That's the way I would have booked it as well. I would have had Sheamus pick up a few cheap wins, despite the fact he won by submission this week, just to put Cesaro against it. But I don't know, man. The crowd's dead. Nobody at home's enjoying it. I'm kind of hoping for, and this is said just purely out of hope that something is salvaged from this. Cesaro now has to go on a winning streak to bring this thing to a conclusion before it gets even more stale. The only other option is to have Sheamus win 4-0 and just kill the segment, and also destroy any push that Cesaro is going to get in the near future. And talking of boring, why are WWE persisting in shoving this Darren Young Titus O'Neil feud down the audience's throat? Nobody cares. Titus can't talk. Darren is just not over. They're not even that good wrestlers. I don't see how much longer this can truthfully go on, because it's a car wreck. The younger viewers don't know who Bob Backlund is. I barely know who Bob Backlund is, and I've been watching for 20 years. And apart from, say, the odd spot where he has turned up and locked somebody in a chicken wing, that was a really poor choice in manager for Darren Young. If you're going to try and get Darren Young over, you needed someone like a Teddy Long. I know it sounds maybe a tiny bit reductive to put him with an African American manager, but I just think it's the right kind of that would be more of a fit for me. That the manager and the client do not gel whatsoever, and the client and his opponent, although they have tag team chemistry, they were never truly huge as a tag team. I know they were former WWE tag team champions, but they lost the belt to the New Day, and the New Day then held those belts for over a year now, which would tell you just kind of how successful the Primetime Players were as a team. And when they broke them up, I assumed they'd both be heading for the Future Endeavoured Club myself, but fair play to them. They've given them another crack of the whip, but I don't know, this thing's falling apart around them, and I don't see who or how they're going to throw these two guys a life. It's done for me. Those guys, once this feud is over, I can't see any sort of future plans for them. You'll see them in the pre-show battle royals that you get, but nah, it's done for me. They need to pack that up. They just don't have a future for me. And another interesting thing, moving on to something a little bit lighter, the Tomspiracy, #Tomspiracy, continues every week. He changes height, and I'll post a photo that I found online during the week of him actually having to stretch his legs, so he's in kind of like a V-shaped stance. So he is just at either the same height or shorter than Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. Oh, I nearly dropped the Steen bomb there. Oh dear, Ring of Honor, it's still a thing. And what is the thought process behind that? Does it really matter that Tom Phillips is taller than some of your wrestlers? I get that to someone who is as macho as Vince McMahon, that may be a problem. And my answer to that is hire some shorter announcers and interviewers. Have one of the girls do it. they're all short. They are trained in the art of talking to these wrestlers. Why can't they do that? Why do they have to demean Tom Phillips and have him, frankly, squat as to not make their wrestlers look small? Does it really matter that Tom Phillips is tall? There are plenty of tall, skinny people who couldn't bench press a flea. But apparently that's the thing. They need to stop it. It's funny. You see the funny side of it, but it's uncalled for, if you ask me. And moving for uncalled for things, we're still on the Braun Strowman and Nia Jax squash matches. Now, you can get away with that for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, but you're not really selling us the fact that the entire WWE locker room, both the women's and the men's, are afraid to fight these two now. It's long gone. You need to give these guys... Well, you should have already given these guys a legitimate task, challenge to occupy their time with. And it's been 6 weeks since the draft, and they have failed to produce. So I'm going to have to give that a big old thumbs down. Hopefully... I'm not saying it's completely too late, but hopefully they will start pushing these guys against main roster talent and not local enhancement talent. I mean, it's not even funny. They tried week before last with Johnny Knockout liking big sweaty men. Once again, that's got Vince stamped all over it. They need to get the ball moving with Braun Strowman and Nia Jax. I can completely buy into them being like all destructive behemoths in the ring, but you need to start having some of the lower card guys jobbing out to them rather than no names, because people are going to switch off. I mean, I'm already starting to switch off. I fast forwarded both matches this week because I didn't want to see them. Like, the moment you give Nia Jax and you give Braun Strowman legitimate competition to face, I will stop fast forwarding. But until that time, it is another down for me. But overall, it was an okay show. It by no means was last week's SmackDown. And to be fair to Raw, the opening half hour with the interview and the Jericho Neville match was solid, and then the final part with the Fatal 4-Way and the return of Triple H and Kevin Owens winning the belt, screwing over Seth Rollins, leaving through the crowd, but not before staring down Stephanie and Mick. Those were quality segments, and I'm definitely tuning in next week to find out what the repercussions and the fallout is. But everything in the middle just felt kind of a waste. That may just be because the opening and the close were so good. But please feel free to drop us a line in the comments section underneath the video that I'm going to post on the YouTube channel. Tell me what you thought of Raw. Am I along the right lines? Do you have any ideas for Braun Strowman? Do you have any ideas for Nia Jax? What do they need to do with Young and O'Neal? How would you book the rest of the Cesaro-Sheamus match? These are all things that I'm interested to hear. So we're going to move on to SmackDown next. And obviously the big thing coming in from last week wasn't even on the show. Now we can talk about Talking Smack in a second. But I just want to say how good SmackDown was. Not this week, but last week. And how disappointed I was with the show this week. Now, for those who have been living under a rock for the past week, major controversy came out of Talking Smack last week when The Miz and Daniel Bryan got in a worked shoot interview on Renee Young's show. A lot of people have been comparing this to the CM Punk pipe bomb from a few years ago, and to be fair, there was a lot of truth to what The Miz is saying. The Miz, to me, is just... he is probably the number 2 guy on the stick in the company, if not the number 1 guy on the stick. He has always been solid, and he does get a lot of crap for being not the greatest wrestler on the planet, but he's the entertainment part, and by Jove is this man entertaining. And when he dropped that interview on Talking Smack last week, even I didn't know whether it was a work or not. There was a feeling they would have cut his mic or something like they did with CM Punk when he got a bit too mouthy. But the show then opened with Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan, as it does every week, because remember, the new era is about the performers. Is it balls? It's about the McMahons, as it's always been, and that's never going to end until the McMahon lines stop germinating all possible viable seed. And the in-ring segment that then followed with The Miz coming out to the ring, cutting off his own music. Now, that's a very un-Miz move. That caught me as interesting, and he continued his tirade from Talking Smack, demanding respect. And yeah, fair play, Miz. You demand that respect, because as he said on Talking Smack, and as he reiterated in the opening segment of SmackDown this week, he's been in the company for 10 plus years now, and the only ring time the man has ever missed was when he was filming movies, which, as part of his gimmick, works, and it's not his fault. Vince McMahon handpicks these guys for his films, and they're all terrible. Once again, not the wrestler's fault. They're getting more screen time, they're getting more exposure, and that's never a bad thing for the company. Then Dolph Ziggler comes out and completely ruins the segment. Also a Dolph Ziggler fan. He is easily one of the best performers in terms of in-ring ability in the company, but so much of the stuff that he said was entirely hypocritical, almost laughably so. Him saying The Miz just is in the business to be famous. Hello, Mr. Total Divas. Hello, Mr. Awful Countdown movie with Kane where he super kicks a gun out of Rusev's hand. You are no better. And I've already said that this isn't the wrestler's fault. If Vince wants you to be in one of his movies, it's going to be happening because it's extra money for the guys, it's more exposure, and that's fine. But don't base your promo and your reiterative argument around things that you yourself are guilty of. It just didn't make any sense, and it made me switch off from the promo, which I had been enjoying until Dolph Ziggler got involved. And I'm still intrigued to watch these two go at it for the Intercontinental title, because it's a prestigious title. These two are workhorse guys who have been in the company for a long time now, and they could easily put on a very, very good program all the way through to Survivor Series and maybe further. I'm quite intrigued to watch that happen, so let's hope that it is something good heading our way. But talking of something bad that has been in our way and quite obvious for some time now is Dean Ambrose's current run as the WWE Champion, and it's getting stale fast. I don't know if it's just me, but since they put the belt on Dean, I don't know whether it's the belt or the switch to SmackDown, he's just become complacent to me, and his in-ring segments his promos are bad, they're corny, they're cartoonish, and since he's gone to SmackDown and the belt has kind of gone on him, it's just been becoming even more apparent and obvious to me how poor his in-ring moveset is. Every time he goes for the roll, I don't know what you'd call it, where he grabs the rope and comes back with a lariat. It's lazy. It is as bad as Roman Reigns, but at least Roman Reigns has a sort of explosiveness and a power-based moveset that kind of gets the fans on their feet. Dean Ambrose is, by all accounts, quite a lean wrestler. He's not one of the taller, broader, stockier guys. He does have a very normal sort of body cut, and for me, this isn't working. He's already a face champion on a face heavy show. You've got a face GM with a face commissioner with a face champion. Where's the conflict? I've spoken at length with some of my friends this week about how face champions only work if they're in conflict with a heel authority figure. The prime example, and a lot of the time, and Stone Cold will likely disagree now following that really awkward podcast the other week, but a lot of the time when Dean was chasing the belt, a lot of people were kind of getting the feeling that there was a Stone Cold sort of loose cannon element to Dean's character, and that's fine when they're chasing the belt. But once they get the belt, they need some sort of higher force to kind of bring them back down a peg so they still fight hard. And I'm not surprised that Dean looks complacent and he looks kind of rubbish in a way. He's just stunted as champion. Unless Daniel Bryan is going to turn heel or Shane is going to turn heel, not bloody likely, you've got no conflict there, and it's all well and good for him to be facing a heel in AJ Styles as competition in the ring. But if AJ doesn't win at Backlash, we've then got another month of this feud where nothing is really happening. I mean, we look how SmackDown finished this week. Dean bouncing AJ's junk up and down off the rope for a good minute. Just fall off the rope, AJ. It's really poor logic, and it put the show out on a flat. Just no interest whatsoever. It's just ridiculous ending to a show. And I don't know if anybody knew this, but after the camera stopped rolling and they did a dark tag match, AJ sat on the rope for the rest of the dark match. What in the blue hell is that about? Thank God they didn't televise that absolute drivel, because it's debasing the main talent you have on that show. God. Speaking of debasing talent, Bray Wyatt is now in a feud with Randy Orton. The seeds were laid, or sown rather, last week in a segment. Why are they doing this? Like, we know Bray Wyatt is going to lose this feud. There is no way he is going to beat Randy Orton. Randy Orton stood up to Brock Lesnar barrels a couple of weeks ago, and he needs to get his popularity back. So they fed him Bray Wyatt, when in actuality, Bray Wyatt should be being fed lesser talent to bring his stock back up, because Randy Orton is a 12-time WWE champion. Not taking anything away from him. He's been a brilliant performer for the time he's been here. But he is not the future of the company. And Bray Wyatt, well, he probably isn't too now, but he used to be seen as it. He has a great gimmick. He has a unique look. He can go in the ring for a big guy. He's very agile. He does unique things with the backwards crab and that sort of thing. That's where the stock should be. That's where the chips need to be laid, and it's too late to pull the trigger. I got a sense that something maybe decent was coming when he shed Eric Rowan a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, because personally I was calling for that. I know a lot of you were calling for that, so that he could just go by himself without having these guys around him. But that's where the plan fell apart for me, because what you needed to do with Bray was to build him back up, because nobody takes him as a legitimate threat anymore. He loses every big feud. You needed to have him kind of run roughshod through the mid card for at least 6 weeks to 2 months before taking on this feud. I think Randy Orton would have been a good opponent for Bray, in a sort of echoing way of the killer gimmick that Randy had back in the early 2000s. And yeah, they dropped the ball, as WWE creative tend to do, pretty much straight off the bat there. So the feud is happening now. The wheels have been set in motion. We've got a match at Backlash between the two, booked a week after the initial hint was laid. Then the challenge came a week after, and that's just too quick. That was really uninteresting. You've now got anticlimax, And Bray Wyatt, if he goes over, even that seems a bit cheap because there's no investment in the feud. But then again, I might be wrong. What do you guys think? Once again, hit me up in the comments section below. Other news from the WWE this week, you've got Alberto Del Rio is apparently finished with the company again. He appeared on SmackDown a few weeks ago dressed in his El Patron trunks, which I think was writing on the wall. That was just before he was suspended for a wellness policy violation. Question is, does Paige now follow him out the door? She has a lot of stock in terms of being in Total Divas and that sort of thing, but the writing's been on the wall for Paige for some time. Her work ethic, I think, has suffered for being on Total Divas. She's very much into that lifestyle now, isn't she? And I think for WWE, as hypocritical as it is, getting with Del Rio off screen when the guy is still legally married, even if they're not together as husband and wife anymore, it may have been the straw that broke the camel's back for management. I'm not, as I said, it is fairly hypocritical. A lot of these wrestlers do have in their contracts that they're not allowed to start relationships with talent, or I believe the rule is that talent can't be in relationships with talent, and behind the scenes guys can't be in relationships with behind the scenes guys. So for example, for people like Dean Ambrose and Renee Young, who are a couple, you lucky bastard Dean, that apparently is fine. But then you've got people like Naomi, Trinity, Fatu, and one of the Usos. I don't really care which is which, to be honest. They're obviously married in real life. You've got the big one is Triple H and Stephanie, but at the time, who's to argue that she wasn't off screen and he was on screen? But once again, that's the McMahons looking out for their own. I honestly don't see Paige walking just to be with Del Rio. If anything, I kind of agree that although it is mildly hypocritical of the WWE to kind of force that choice upon her, it is in her own interest. We know Paige can go in the ring. She was the crowning glory of the NXT women's division when it first started. We know she's got potential. She's come from a long line of wrestlers, a big wrestling family in Norwich here in England, and trust me, they would be as disappointed as anyone should Paige go out in this fashion. For me, this is a wake up call for Paige. She needs to see that this is in her better interest, and she needs to get herself back in the mix, because she is fastly becoming irrelevant, and she is formerly known as the anti-diva, has just become what she apparently hated, and it's time for her to buck her ideas up, quite frankly. Del Rio won't be missed. He's a guy I like, don't get me wrong, but he's too sullen and he's too cocksure of himself. He's got that traditional Latino passionate, fiery anger inside him, and it's not going to work between him and the brass. So I think it is best they both go their separate ways. We know that Lucha Underground will take him back in a heartbeat. He was making far more money. He could pretty much just ask for blank checks on the independent scene. So this is a better move for him. It's better for the company, and as I said, I just hope he doesn't drag Paige with him. For all I know, that they're in a very meaningful relationship, but he has to understand that she's still very young and she has a career ahead of her, whereas Del Rio's is slowly ebbing away. So hopefully this will be a learning curve for both of them. And quickly touching upon the Cruiserweight Classic this week, we're now in the quarterfinal stages. This week saw Kota Ibushi and Gran Metalik advance to the semi-finals at the behest of Brian Kendrick and Akira Tozawa. The right choice. The younger guys, the bigger stars, have gone through there. The question is, do Kendrick and Tozawa end up on Raw as part of the new Cruiserweight division? Absolutely 100% yes. Whilst you need the younger guys to shine in this tournament, you will need the older guys to kind of round out and make things slightly more prestigious when it comes to the main roster. Brian Kendrick has shown throughout this entire tournament that he still has a lot to offer despite his age, and it would almost be criminal to miss up on that opportunity. I'm not saying sign him to a multi-year deal, maybe just a 1-year deal and see how he feels after that. But he is definitely worth keeping around, and I look forward to next week's CWC. So that's going to be all from me for tonight. Once again, please hit the comments and let me know how you think this show went, how you would have booked differently to how I have, your own opinions. I'm always happy to message back and give you guys the ears. I've been the mouth. I'm Liam Patterson. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week for more the WWE that was.